Good afternoon, young people. It's Mrs. Rains. I'm just here talking about Cornell note-taking for my Honors in Advanced Chemistry class. So here we go. Cornell note-taking. Why should you take notes? Well, you want to minimize your rate of forgetting. Here, let me make myself disappear. I'm still around, but I'm not going to be here. You want to minimize your rate of forgetting. According to Dr. Paulk at Cornell University, people forget in 14 days if they don't take notes. They forget 60%. If they take some notes, they remember 60%. If they take organized notes and do something with them, both of them, they remember 90 to 100% indefinitely. So the more you do with your notes, the more you look at your notes after you've taken them, the more you write on them, the more you do all of those things, the more you remember. So if this is about learning, remembering is key to understanding and learning. So what does Cornell note-taking look like? Well, he created a system that's used in most schools of engineering and law, especially at UCLA and Cornell. It requires students to review notes and think critically after they've taken them. So what does that look like? Well, it looks like a page like this where you put your name and date and the topic, and then you take notes here. You're going to draw things. You're going to write maybe brief sentences or brief words or whatever you need, but you're not going to be writing whole sentences or whole things there. Then you're going to ask questions or use vocab words to highlight the things that are important on the right-hand side of the page. And the final thing you're going to do is summarize those things. So what does it really look like? So we are going to have a line that we draw right here. This line gets drawn on your page. So this line here that I'm pointing at with the laser pointer needs to get drawn on your page, and it needs to be about 2.5 inches from the binding of your thing. Do not use this mark right here. This margin mark, the little rule on your paper, is not big enough to write the things you need to write in, so make sure you leave plenty of room. About 2.5 inches is good from the edge of the paper, okay, or from the perforation of the paper. So you draw the line first. Next, you put in your first and last name, the title of your class, the period, and the date that you're taking those notes. Next, on the left-hand side, you're going to put the topic that the notes are about. Then over here on the right-hand side, you're going to actually take the class notes. You're going to make drawings, maybe put a little copy of a diagram or a reference to a diagram from a textbook. You're going to do important words here, anything that's going to help you take notes. The really important thing is that you leave some space. So make sure you're leaving some space over here on this side so that you can annotate or highlight, or if you need to put a sticky note in, you can put a sticky note in that asks a question. So you want to leave a little space here so that you have some room to move and groove when you're getting into more knowledge of what you're doing. Next, you're going to ask questions or put subtitles, vocab words, things like that on this side. And then finally, at the bottom of the last page, you're going to create a 3 to 4 sentence summary. It must be a short paragraph of summary, and it should be at the bottom of the last page of whatever notes you take. So you may have more than one page of notes, and that's fine. You might need more than one page of notes. So please make sure you're not limiting yourself to one single page and you think you have to have a summary on every page. You need a summary for the end of your note-taking cycle. If you're just doing a section in the textbook, do a summary at the end of that section. That would be a really good idea. When should you take notes? Okay, you should take notes. So when you're learning, anytime you're trying to learn something, they're a record of your learning. So you take them when you listen to a lecture, like a video, when you read a text, when you watch a film, maybe a portion of a film, a portion of a video, when you work on a group activity. Maybe you need to annotate some of your notes, or you need to write a few more notes because you just got information. If you need to recall any information about what happened during an academic class or a learning environment or something you're trying to learn, you should be taking notes. So that means basically always, okay? Always taking notes. What do you notice that's different about Cornell Notes than other styles of notes? Well, they're divided into 2 parts. You have the notes on the right-hand side, and you have questions that you're asking on the left-hand side, so that becomes a tool that you can use to study with later on. There's a reflection in the end. So you have to reflect on what you just wrote. You can't just finish them and be done and put them away. You have to then go back over them and decide what was it that you actually learned. There's room for a topic, so you're going to put on top of it a topic that you've learned about, the thing that you're taking notes on, so that it's a quick reference for you when you're studying. And they're labeled, so they're organized, in other words. So the more organized you have your notes, the better off you are in the end. So what are some good tips for actually taking the notes that are on the right-hand side? So good tips are write only what's most important. Don't try to write everything on the page. Don't try to write every single word on a slide. Don't try to write every single word that I'm saying. Write the most important bits, okay? Listen for repetition. Listen for me repeating things over and over and over again. Because if I'm repeating them over and over again, they're probably something that I'm trying to get you to remember. If I'm changing pace, if I slow down a little bit, if my voice goes down a little bit or goes up some, or I change volume and I'm trying to get a little louder, make sure you're doing that. If there's numbering, if there are things that are numbered, explicit things, explicit cues within the packet or within the PowerPoint or within the video that make you understand that they're important. These things all could be important, and they could be on a test, so you need to make sure you cue into that. Watch for gestures or clues to the organization. So if there's something in the organization that leads you to believe, like if there's an arrow to a picture or a diagram, maybe that picture or diagram is something that's important. If in a reading passage you see a reference to a diagram, that diagram might be important to your understanding. Look for material being written down. So if I were to come and get my pen over here and start writing, you would probably need to write yourself. Now, I'm not writing very well because I'm using my mouse to do this. But if I'm starting to write, that might be something that you really want to cue into and pay attention to. Okay, what are some other good tips? So write in your own words. Don't use my words, use your words. The more you paraphrase into your own words, the more you understand. Okay, write using abbreviations. Check dictionaries if you've created your own, or write them down. So sometimes I use different abbreviations for different words because they were faster to write than the whole word. Draw figures or diagrams. Break up the wording so that you have some information that you can see in front of you. Leave space where you think you might need to fill in info later. So if there's something that you didn't understand, leave some space in that area so that you can understand what you're doing and you can actually annotate it for later. Use bullets and arrows, indenting things. So if you've written a topic closer to the left, then indent a little bit if you have things that are underneath that. So use some things to cue you off, and make sure you're writing so you can read it. That would be really important. Okay, what are some good tips? Sorry about that. What are some good tips for taking notes on the right? Some other, listen actively, use slant. Okay, maintain eye contact with the speaker or the group. In your case, slant's not very useful because you're going to be watching a video. Okay, nod your head when you're supposed to. Frown when you don't understand. Ask relevant questions. These are all if you're present in a lecture. Okay, answer the questions posed by the instructor. So even when I'm posing questions to you in the videos, answer those questions if you can. Make a written record. Okay, what types of questions should I have placed on the left-hand side? Questions which are answered in the notes on the right are always appropriate, okay? Questions you still need answered, so you can ask a friend or you can ask a teacher or you can get a sticky note and write, I don't understand this, and point an arrow to it so that you understand what you don't understand, okay? Question the teacher might ask on the test, so if the teacher's repeated yourself, hey, if they're asking a question about that and they're repeating themselves over and over again, you might want to ask that. Higher level thinking questions. Don't just limit yourself to what is. Try to think about, explain how that is happening. Those kinds of things where you're creating, you're explaining, you're evaluating things, okay? What else should I place on the left-hand side? Key terms, vocabulary, words, and dates are always appropriate. Dates are more appropriate for things like social studies. But if you limit yourself to just key terms, it's not going to be okay. You need to be asking yourself questions and thinking critically. So it's not okay to turn in a set of notes with just key terms. And I can tell you what, if notes are on your binder checks, ladies and gentlemen, and all they have is key terms, they're not going to be counted. So you need to have questions and key terms and all of the things that are required to make you show that you've been thinking. Diagrams or figures are not as appropriate on the left-hand side. Not sure why that's there. Reference pages. So if you have something in a textbook that is too complicated to draw or too complicated to do, you might want to write that on the left-hand side to cue you that you need to go look at the textbook for that piece of information. Steps in a solution process. Sometimes you might want to write the steps. I would write the steps under notes, and then I would write, how do you solve, and ask that question over there so that it becomes a study tool. Notes to yourselves about what you need to do. I would probably do that on sticky notes and put that over there and with arrows pointing to what you need. Do you need more review? Do you need to ask more questions? What do you need to do? Sorry, there was somebody copying in the background. So what are the steps to taking Cornell Notes? So basically you set up your page first. You draw on the margin and then you label everything clearly. You put your name and everything in the top right. You put your topic at the top left. And then you start taking your notes. Use the best strategies. Some of the things that you've already talked about and that we talked about today that you're going to be using. Break it up a little bit. Don't just have words stacked on top of words so that you can't annotate it and you don't have any room to write in any other things that you need to know. Make sure that you're thinking about those ahead of time. Actively listen on the video. Actively analyze and ask questions of yourself as you're going along. Did I understand that? Do I get that? What did that really mean? Ask those questions of yourself, okay? And review, revise, and reflect. This is probably the most important thing about Cornell Notes that makes it the most effective, is that you're actually revising your own work. And that's where Cornell note-taking becomes a really great tool for you. I'm back now. Because you're not just taking them and putting them in a binder. You're taking them and then you're pulling them out while you're doing work. And if you get more information, you're adding that information, or you're highlighting things that the teachers really recommended that you highlight. You're editing, you're asking more questions, and you're being more reflective about what those questions are and how they lead you to a more understanding. So those are always great things, and that last process of the STAR is really important, reviewing, revising, and reflecting, because if notes are only something you take once and then you put down, that could be a really big problem. Okay, why are we taking notes? And I'm going to go through this really quickly. Good notes allow students to help each other problem solve. Okay, that means you can work together. If everybody has good notes, everybody's working from the same cues, then everybody can get together and problem solve. Okay, it stimulates critical thinking. So it stimulates my thought processing if I'm thinking a little bit more deeply and not just thinking about what the knowledge base is. It helps students remember what was said. A good set of notes can prepare you for a test, or even prepare you for outside things that might remind you of what you've just done in the notes. Okay? Good notes help you problem solve. Oh, that's a repeat. That's not good. Good notes help students organize and process data and information. And they help students recall by getting them to process the notes more than once. That's the whole key here. Some of this is a repeat of another slide. Sorry about that. So make sure you're thinking about that. Okay? Writing is a great tool for learning. The more you write what you hear, the more you understand and remember what you hear. And it is known to be true. You may be a visual learner, but if you write it as well as see it or hear it, you're going to be great in the end. Okay? So we're going to end right there. Hopefully this gets you through note-taking, and hopefully you'll be able to take some Cornell notes for yourself. You're going to be required in this class to use Cornell note-taking. If notes are on binder checks and they are not in Cornell note style, they will not be accepted. So you need to make sure that you're learning Cornell note-taking. It is a requirement for this class that you learn how to do this. After this class, what you do is your own business, but during this class, you will do what I want you to do, because I'm trying to teach you a tool that will help you for your future. It's not just about me being in control. It's about me helping you learn how to use a tool more effectively. Okay? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.